In this week's episode of Studio Inter, we'll be discussing the disaster against Torino. We'll be previewing the Coppa Italia game against Lazio, the Serie A game against Bologna, this week's Moggi, Moratti, Frog, and Inter Legends, and much, much more. Everything here on Studio Inter, only on SempreInter.com.
Ecco Perisic, 1-1, gioco di gambe, guadagna il fondo, il cross, Icardi, e gol, 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 Maurito il Mamba!
Sono i blocchi nell'area di rigore, arriva la palla, la prende Vecino, che segna solo contro le romane, segna il gol del 3-2
per una vittoria eccezionale.
Benvenuti, bentornati to another edition of Studio Inter. I am your host Nima Ruzzari, wishing you all welcome to a show that will be, which I think will be slightly different, which will follow the same theme as last week, in that I think there will be a lot of tears, anger, but a little bit of positivity as well. And I'm hoping that the positivity will come from Mr. Positivity, all the way from Dubai, our SempreInter.com's own preview writer who runs excellent previews, the hungry Nasaurus himself, Mr. Mohamed Nassar.
Hey guys, yeah, not a lot of low-hanging fruit to pick off in terms of positivity, but we'll see. We'll try and find a silver lining here.
Hey, if you can't find it, then it's not there, okay? So you have a lot of responsibility today. Right. And we're also joined by the host of the Alex Donno Show, all the way from Miami, Florida, Mr. Alex Donno. How are you, my friend?
What a great day. The sun is shining. It's a beautiful time to be alive. What a great moment to be an Inter supporter. Nima, Mo, I've never been happier than I am right now at this moment. How are you?
I sense a little bit of irony there, but that's okay, because I think our final guest won't be too ironic. I think he was pretty angry last week, and I think he's pretty pissed off this week as well. He does the Inter Legends on SempreInter.com. Welcome to the show, Mr. Critty Smith.
Hey, and in the spirit of the Royal Rumble, which was last Saturday or Sunday, I'm going to do a tribute to the 92 Royal Rumble when Ric Flair won and say, I'm not the kind of guy to tell you I told you so, but I told you so.
You sure did. Let's get into it, guys. I mean, I don't even know where to begin about that, what we saw against Torino. I had a feeling like last week, because it's Mazzarri and all that stuff, but I can't remember if I said it last week, but I was dreading the three-man defense, and I mean, Mo, talk to me. What the hell happened?
Look, even the most optimistic of us last week wasn't very optimistic. So we all knew that it was going to be a pretty crappy game of football, which it definitely was, and that it was going to be determined by individual plays. And it clearly was, so...
That's very diplomatic of you. Yeah, Handanovic screwed up. Let's just put it out there. Handanovic made the biggest mistake, I think, since Fiorentina.
No. Maybe since... No, not even. No. You know where I stand about Handanovic. So.
Yeah, but I've never seen him do that. I mean, that was the ball was barely moving. I mean, it was like it was in slow motion. I mean, I've seen him when the shots. I agree. We have a different opinion on that, but this was ridiculous. The ball was barely moving. It was horrible. It was pitiful to watch. I mean, Jesus, what was he doing? I mean, how no goalkeeper of that caliber should do that? I mean, come on, you don't watch
no goalkeeper of any caliber.
Yeah, true. No, seriously, let's be honest. I've been on Handanovic's side, but what the hell was that? I mean, the ball wasn't a bullet header. He had all the time in the world. What was he doing?
Yeah. And in Inter's defense, or Spalletti's defense, or whatever's defense, up until the goal got scored, or up until like the first half of the first half, they were doing pretty well. It seemed like things would be going well, but again, I think the anti-football that Mazzarri plays isn't helpful for any team that's trying to regain form. You don't go. You never find you're never a phoenix rising out of the ashes against a Mazzarri team. It's anti-football. It's boring football. It's annoying. He makes the best teams look like crap and they play against him, he makes his sides look like crap as well in the process. So it was the snooze fest that was always going to be. Are there things that Spalletti did wrong? Of course. Are there things that could be symptomatic of possibly a meltdown? Sure. But has the rhetoric out of the Inter camp post match been a lot different to the last few years? Also true. So I think I have that, to make me try and sleep better at night is all I've been hearing out of the Inter camp post Torino so far. So we'll talk about the game before we can talk about the overall state of Inter, but the game in and of itself was the result was not what I expected, definitely not what I would have wished for, but the game itself seemed pretty much like what we would have imagined it, a tight, ugly game with very unattractive football determined by individual scenarios and individual circumstances.
I understand. I think speaking of mistakes that Spalletti did, Alex, do you think the three-man defense was a mistake, or did he have no choice?
I think he had no choice. I think given the lack of wingers and not wanting to start Perisic because of the transfer rumors, I think Spalletti's hand was forced there. But I'm glad you asked that question, Nima, because there are a couple of different ways to break down what went wrong for Inter in Torino. I think that certainly you can look at things formationally and tactically. Three-man defense. In that up front, whether or not an Icardi-Lautaro partnership really worked, or was whether it was a disaster or not. But to me, I start with one place, and maybe this is an overall theme that we're going to discuss throughout the show, but I think bigger than any tactical or formational problems was I am looking at the same Inter that I look at this time of year after year after year after year, that you can only make so many tactical excuses for a team that showed me no mentality, a team that showed me weakness. I mean, Mo mentioned that once Torino scored their goal, it was a different Inter and a different Torino after that, where it looked like the Nerazzurri went into a shell after that and weren't the same team. I wonder how much the Perisic rumors and all the Icardi contract stuff in recent weeks has affected this team's mentality. But how can I come away from that performance and not think there are problems with the way this team is approaching things between their ears and the way things are going off the pitch? I see that honestly as a bigger factor in this loss than any of what I saw formation-wise. And, you can blame, certainly I'm sure some of that blame may go to Spalletti for having his guys prepared mentally, but I look at that game as more of a mental problem than I look at it as, problems with three at the back or two strikers. I think that was Pazze Inter.
Agreed. Critty, I'm really keen to hear what you said, because you were kind of talking about that last week that you were expecting kind of this what happened. So now it's happened. What are your thoughts?
I had this weird sadistic smile on my face when the game was over, because this is exactly what I expected, and I do like it when I'm right, but I don't like it when I'm right in these circumstances. And it's like things like these instances usually lead to massive changes within football sides. Traditionally over the years, when we really now there's this panic mode because they've really had the same pathetic start to the second half of the season as they did to the first half of the season back in August with these same two teams, Sassuolo and Torino. And it's so strange. Spalletti, it was said, he should probably play a 4-3-1-2 if he's going to play. Gazzetta actually wrote about that earlier in the week about him, approaching, if you're going to play two number 9s in the front, if you're going to play Lautaro and Icardi up front, then play with a 4-man backline gives you Dalbert and D'Ambrosio a chance to play at their natural fullback positions, as opposed to going into 3-5-2, which places them further up the pitch. Maybe they feel out of their comfort zone. I don't fault him at all for trying tactically something different. And people, it's like he had one shot for this Lautaro Icardi thing to work. And if it didn't just work beautifully the very first time, people are going to criticize him. Why did you do this? He should do it again. There's only one way to go from here, and that's up. I don't dislike a partnership that I've only had one chance to see. I want to see more of it. I'd like to see it fail 3 or 4 times before I say, okay, this definitely needs to never happen again. I don't think that you can judge a tactical system or philosophy after one poor performance. That said, what Mo was talking about was exactly right. They're walking into this Torino trap, this anti-football, the way that the game is so ugly when you play Torino. Yes, they look like crap in the process, but when you make the error that Handanovic makes, and then Torino plays the way that they do, it is the perfect recipe for disaster, especially being on the road in their stadium. And this is there is definitely this is panic mode now at this point. There is no doubt about it. This is a must-win match with in the league coming up with Bologna. This is something that some things have to change. But as I said last week, and I'll stand by what I said, the mercato from the summer has been, at this point now, as we stand here and look at this starting 11, besides Politano here and there, yes, De Vrij has been okay. Where are these heroes? Where are these guys that reason we became this quote-unquote anti-Juve? Oh, Versalco, oh, Nainggolan, all these guys. They're not even a factor. They're not even a factor in this team one way or another. It's the same Inter side that finished 4th last season with the same mentality. And I swear to you guys, FIFA has actually programmed EA Sports to make Inter worse in their game December and January, because I'm going through that stretch right now, and for some reason I'm playing worse.
That's an interesting thing. No, the thing is, the way I look at it, and the way I've been trying to not, maybe look at this some way, something positive or whatever. And honest to God, I don't think there was anything positive with that. I mean, I'm not saying that you don't get to show, as Mo said, you don't turn up against the Mazzari team who plays anti-football. That's his shtick. I mean, he plays anti-football. He bores you to death, and then you make a stupid mistake and you lose the game. That's what he does, and each to their own. We had him at Inter, so we should know. But when it comes to the 3-man defense, I think that, I also agree with you, Alex. You said that he was forced to it. I think he was forced to it too. That's why I do not understand this Spalletti out nonsense. Because, again, if people were expecting to win the Scudetto, then they need to have a reality check, because that was never going to happen. Inter are not that good. Inter was supposed to build on last season, and they have built on last season. We're 3rd, and that's where we need to finish. We need to, improve on last season. But if we look at this game in isolation and together with everything that's happened, it's, the other years it's been December and January. December was okay this year. Now it's just January. This team is still not mentally ready. They're not there yet to be able to leave the old sins of the past that they used to fall into behind. They're still not there yet. And I think that is something that is whether or not you need to do what some other teams do, like, for example, when Milan did, when Mirabelli and Fasone took over, they just cleared house and kicked everyone out and brought everyone new in. Whether it's something like that the Inter needs to do, or if it's a coaching thing, or what it is, I don't know, because it's getting better, but it's getting better at a very slow rate than we would have hoped for.
Nima,
yeah.
You remember in the first match back in August, he played with a 3-man backline as well, and Inter dominated the first half of play. So, it's funny. He's going to get criticized for this, but he was praised for the first 45 minutes, 6 months ago. So, it really, Spalletti, sometimes he can't win. I mean, it's not a faulting of trying something different. It's just that, it just didn't work out this time. And again, I don't think I don't know if he should play with a 3-man backline again, but he should definitely not stop trying to put new pieces together and figure out things to work out the kinks in this team, because there's definitely a lot to work out right now.
True. Mo, what are your thoughts on the whole I mean,
the general state of Inter.
Yeah, no, I mean this like what I was saying about the whole
Yeah.
the January thing. I mean, what do you think? I mean, we've been very optimistic, and I was with you because I thought December was all right result wise, but here we are, and it's again the beginning of the season all over again, and it's January. It's a trend, isn't it?
Hey, of course, it's a trend, though. We've been through this many times, so clearly it's a trend. But we know that Spalletti learned from his mistakes last season, and he was able to pull the team back. And I can only, have faith in the fact that he knows how to do things better with that Inter, which is why December wasn't as bad. And hopefully he can pull things back in January sooner than, let's say, mid-Feb. So I don't have, I'm willing to give it another couple of weeks before I start ringing the alarm bells. But what's also important for me is the management structure and the words coming out of Appiano or out of HQ. And we've all seen the reports that Zhang is furious, and he's given Spalletti not like an ultimatum, but a clear target: get a cup this year, a trophy this year, or the season is not acceptable. Finishing comfortable third is our minimum requirement now. So for the first time in a long time, there are clear objectives that are an improvement on the year before coming out of the Inter management. And, love the fact that we have a Juventino in the management team in Marotta, or hate it. The fact is, Marotta is a seasoned veteran, and he knows exactly how to gestire these tough situations. This is what he does. He knows how to maneuver, manage, eke, through, pull, push, tug. So I have faith in the process. It's ugly, and I agree. Maybe a clean out is needed. Maybe like weak-minded players like Perisic, who's asking for a transfer. Or today we read that Vecino is asking for a transfer as well. Miranda was upset at the lack of playing time. Like all these guys, if you're not fully on board with the project, please, thank you very much for your services. You've done very well up to this point, but this isn't the sort of player that we want anymore. If the players aren't willing to give, their all on the pitch every match, then that's not the kind of player that we want. And I saw lots of positivity from other players who actually stood up and raised their hands and apologized to the fans, like Brozovic on Instagram, and of course Icardi and Nainggolan, who clearly said that it was our mistake, we apologize, and we have to rectify the situation quickly. So this is also what we'd seen the years before, were certain players, disappearing off social media or not acknowledging what's going on. But it seems like things might be different this year. I don't know. And I also like to believe in a bit of parallelisms in football. And it was the Bologna match when Nainggolan scored that goal that really broke our string of no wins in the beginning of the season. So maybe it's the Bologna match on Sunday or Monday, is it, that is going to be the turning point for the second half of the season. We'll see. But again, I know last week I said we'll wait until the Torino match to make judgment on the state of Inter. I'm still willing to push that date another week forward. So we'll see on the next podcast.
Okay, let's get to that, because you were kind of working around the edges there. This Perisic situation that has come up, and this is I personally think that this is kind of connected to what happened with Wanda and Mauro, because when you have your team captain create all this nonsense, then this kind of spreads. Now, I think I'm not saying that's the only reason, because obviously Perisic is not a child; he's an adult. But if we just look at this situation in and of itself, was there anything Inter could have done to avoid this? Or is this more a situation of there's been a lot of change? Obviously, Tohir has left, a new ownership has come in, and new minority shareholders come in. Marotta has come in. It's a different dynamic altogether. So is it just everyone trying to find their place and therefore not a big deal? Or could this have been avoided by Inter? What do you think? I
think the Perisic situation is interesting. I think Perisic is at 29 years old. He has realized that Inter are probably not going to win the Scudetto or win a major trophy before his contract expires. So he's probably not going to be due for an increase in wages ever anymore. And his only chance of really getting a bump in his wages is if he changes side or league. And his last chance is a move to the Premiership at 29. If he's at 30, he's probably not going. He probably won't be able to garner as much wage as he would now. I mean, 30 from 29 is a big psychological step in a player's lifespan. So I think this is basically a money play by Perisic. He's like, oh crap, I'm going to be turning 30. This Inter team is not going to be able to fulfill my financial ambitions in the 2 or 3 years left in my contract. I have to do something right away. That's how I'm reading it.
Okay, that's interesting. How do you read it, Alex?
Well, and Nima, I can add this. I think that Perisic moving on, whether it's Arsenal or any other side, it could really be a win-win because from an Inter perspective, you can no longer deny his inconsistency. I certainly had hope after a very good World Cup he had, with him being, one of the reasons why Inter did make Champions League and break that long drought. He contributed to that. I thought there was some momentum leading towards Perisic maybe becoming more of a prominent fixture on this club, but clearly it's not materialized. He's taken a step back this season. So from an Inter perspective, I think his cycle with this club is done. It's time to move on. It's time to replace him, to inject some energy. And then from a Perisic standpoint, I could very well see him as being the type of player because I think psychologically he's very unique. If he moves on to a different league and a different club, I could see him being energized somewhere else and really becoming an important part of another club because we know physically what he's capable of. When Perisic is on, he's one of the better wingers in the world. The problem is he's not on with this club enough. So I could certainly see Perisic moving on as being a win-win. I could see him energized by a change of scenery, and I can certainly see how Inter want to be energized by someone who's got more love for the shirt, someone who, just psychologically has more to give to those colors. So I'm all for it, right? I mean, there are certain transfer rumors when you see people speculate, oh, is Chelsea going to buy Icardi? Who's going to pay that release clause? Certain rumors you see and you get a little bit upset as an Inter supporter. I don't want to lose this guy. I don't want to lose that guy. When I see rumors of Perisic moving on, I have no problem with it whatsoever. But of course, you have to receive value back for that player, right? If you're receiving a very low loan with option to buy, then that's really not something that Inter is interested in accepting, and I completely understand that. But if you get a reasonable offer from this guy, I think this is a situation where you absolutely want to move on. He can be a good football player, I think, somewhere else, but I think his cycle is done at Inter. And to be honest with you, I wish that he hadn't waited so long in the January transfer window to hand in a transfer request. I mean, we didn't catch wind of this until, the final 4 or 5 days of the window. Maybe they could have worked something out sooner. But I'll be honest with you, I hope that he is no longer with this club when the window closes, because I don't want this group to have to deal with the distraction of having a guy on the squad who doesn't want to be here. So I hope they can get this worked out.
You just took all the words out of my mouth when it comes to how I hope they handle this situation and what happens. But I'm kind of keen to see, like, Critty, do you see some sort of tangent between what started between the Wanda situation and the contract? Now you have Miranda wanting to leave, obviously for a different reason. Gagliardini reportedly wants to leave. Vecino wants to leave. And then you have Perisic not training apart from the team. What conclusions do you draw from that?
I mean, these are that's really tough to say. It's a great question. I don't know if they're influenced by Wanda and her actions. It certainly has some unique timing around it, but I think these are people that are left over from, Inter's trying to, my opinion on this, Inter's trying to move into a more positive mindset in a different direction. A lot of these names you just mentioned are from those really the Frank de Boer teams and the Pioli and Mancini and so those were just bad Inter teams, as far as like being inconsistent and not giving a damn and play great one week and poor the next, and it just inability to have fluidity and attack. And Spalletti really does, I believe, have a shot here to kind of refresh the deck a little bit. And I think getting rid of some of these names is not necessarily a bad thing. The thing that with Wanda, it could obviously have sparked other people to say, well, if it's good for him, if they can complain, then I can complain too. And and Icardi never said he outright wanted to leave, but some of these players are. But that could have obviously created a domino effect in the sense that there was maybe some underlying disenfranchised players as far as like their behavior and demeanor and attitude goes, and that now has been able to be opened up by the Wanda statements, and these players feel more comfortable now just displaying their displeasure with the club. But as it pertains to Perisic, I followed him since he was at Borussia Dortmund way back in the day, and then went to VfL Wolfsburg and followed him in the Bundesliga. He's never really been a consistent player. If you look at at his full body of work, he was very young at Dortmund, and so they sold him to Wolfsburg, and he had some games where he looked like he was on fire, and other games where he would disappear. And he's the same player at Inter that he was 5 years ago at Wolfsburg. He really is. He's just a more older, more experienced version of that player. But I as soon as I saw these transfer rumors, honestly, when Manchester United talked about buying him last summer before last, I was all for it. I've been for him leaving for quite some time now. I think he looks disinterested. I think he looks like he doesn't care to be there. I think he looks like he doesn't want to play for Inter. He has a almost bored look on his face, like this is just money to me, and I don't really give a crap whether we win, lose, or draw. It's just I just want my paycheck. He's always come across to me as a player like that, going way back in the Bundesliga, not even talking about just his Inter time. It's always been about the paycheck for Ivan Perisic. So obviously, as Alex said, you want something in return, but maybe that has to wait till the summer. Maybe we obviously Keita Balde came in this past Mercato, and you maybe you see what you have with him. But Perisic has a toxic demeanor about him, and I would have zero issue with him moving on at this point.
In the SempreInter.com community on Facebook, we have a Facebook group which is really great. You should join and check it out if you haven't joined already. But this situation. It was a member called named Ahmed Khaled who actually wrote a really interesting post about this today, and I about this whole situation. And I wanted to hear what you guys think about it. He says, is there an explanation to the rut that we're currently facing? One theory I read is that the problem might be with Marotta's arrival, that some players and maybe even the coach might have learned that they are out of the club's plans for the next season, and that might damage motivation and squad morale. And if that is the case, it's a bad move on the management's part to inform of such decisions before the season is over. I believe what is happening is towards the long-term cleansing of the team to get rid of the deadwood to be able to take the next step. I doubt the club's future is at risk at this. I found that a really interesting thing. Maybe that is it. Maybe Marotta has maybe started giving, since taking over, he has a completely different agenda. He wants to do it his way, exactly like you both of you, I think all three of you have alluded to, from De Boer. And I think, I don't think that he's come in and I think he's too intelligent to just rock the boat like that. But this is a really interesting point. I think there is something to this. What do you think, Alex?
Well, I think it's inevitable, especially when you have someone coming from Juventus. They're not known for their sentimentality, right? They are known for being the type of club that even if you're a legend like a Gigi Buffon, when they decide it's time to move on, they are very cold with the way they say goodbye to you. You can ask Gonzalo Higuain how that went when he was loaned out to Milan, that he was upset about how cold and informal that was. So I think that there has to be a sense of inevitability, right? If you play for Inter, if you're Spalletti, if you're one of the coaches on his staff, I think you have to have a certain expectation that when there's a new sheriff in town, and that's Beppe Marotta, that he is going to want to make his stamp on the club. He's going to want to make transfers, and in order to add players, you're going to have to subtract some players. So I find it hard to imagine that his blueprint has become so public that every player is aware, okay, I'm part of the plan, I'm not, so I can start moving on. I don't think he had to make that public, but I think that if you're someone who's not enjoying a great amount of playing time, and if you're someone who's under some scrutiny at this moment, you may see the writing on the wall, right? If you're a guy, like a Miranda, who's not playing very much, you become a rotational center back. If you're a guy like Perisic, who's fallen out of favor, and when Keita Balde was healthy, it looked like Keita did take Perisic's starting spot on the left wing before his injury popped back up. I think you might get the sense that, you know what, I don't have the cushy starting job here that I did before Moratti came in. So I think that inevitability does come into play.
Real, it's an interesting subject, no doubt, and we will definitely have reason to get back to it. But before we get back to it, because we can't dwell on this forever, there are actually a couple of games needing played. And number one is Lazio. Well, we're recording this on a Tuesday, and the match is on a Thursday. So just quickly, it's at home. Lazio. One of the goals of this season, in my opinion, has been to go to a semi-final final in the Coppa Italia. I think of all the times to play Lazio in a quarterfinal of the Coppa Italia, this is really not the ideal time. But you can't choose it; you just have to face it. Or do you think that's? I mean, am I making too big a deal of this, Mo, or is it just the Coppa Italia? Who cares?
No, I think we need to start caring about Coppa Italias, about Europa Leagues, about every single trophy we're in contention for. I think gone should be the days where Inter doesn't compete for every trophy they're in the running for. So I think it's a very important match. I think, like I said earlier, if the reports that have come out of Inter HQ are correct, the management has made it very clear to Spalletti that a cup this year, whether it's the Europa League or the Coppa Italia, are important. I think the match is a big deal. It's the quarterfinal. It puts you 2 matches away from winning the first cup that we've won since, God knows when now. It's must have been September of 2011, right?
Yeah, May 2011. May 2011.
May 2011. There you go. Yeah. So let's see. I think it's an important match. I think, just like you said, this is definitely not the best of time to be facing Lazio. I mean, sure, they lost to Juventus, but it was in Turin, and it was, they played quite well, and Juve barely took the 3 points there in that match. So they're not in any dampened sort of spirits, and we definitely are. And I believe this is the last match behind closed doors for Inter at the San Siro.
Well, it's not a closed door. It's the Curva Nord that's closed.
It's just the Curva that's shut.
Yeah,
okay.
I think so, because I think it was the Benevento. It was Sassuolo. It was Benevento. It was. Yeah, so I think it's just the Curva Nord that was.
It was two matches fully closed, and then 6 with the Curva shut, right?
That's something like that. Yeah.
Well, anyway, so let's see. Look, it's never you never want an important match in a cup to be the match where you pin your resurgence hopes on, but we'll see. Like you said, this is the hand we're dealt, and we need to play with it. So.
Fair enough. Well, Alex, just quickly, because I don't want to dwell on this too much. Personally, I think that a win against Lazio and Bologna is what is needed before, because if Inter lose, close, play good but lose, just miss out narrowly against Lazio, and then just don't fail to win against Bologna, it's full on Crisi Inter. And whether we like it or not, that's what's going to happen. And I think I don't think that the ship, that's something I don't want to go through right now. So, I mean, what do you think? Am I exaggerating, or do you agree?
No, you're not exaggerating. If Inter doesn't perform well in both of these upcoming games, it's full on crisis. I agree with what Mo was saying, that Coppa Italia is important for Inter. It is a priority, especially if Spalletti is being told he needs a trophy and or a top 3 finish to keep his job. I think Inter will and should approach this aggressively. From a Lazio side of things, the last time Inter faced Lazio, that was during a very tough stretch for Milinkovic-Savic, who was completely invisible at that point. He is now actually showing signs of life, which is not good. But if I will take an optimistic approach, from a Lazio perspective, coming off a very emotional loss to Juve, where they had a 1-0 lead and couldn't hold on to it, maybe this could be the right time to face Lazio, because that is a draining experience, a short turnaround, a short week for them, very tough stretch for them. So if I'm looking for a positive light to shine on it, if I were a Lazio supporter, I would say, okay, I have to go from, a very, very tough loss to Juve to a trip to the San Siro. That looks like a tough stretch. Hopefully Inter can take advantage of that.
Agreed. Right. Then we have Bologna. And I mean, against Bologna, it's just 3 points that counts. I mean, let's not beat around the bush. It doesn't matter how it goes against Lazio. 3 points against the Bologna that sacked Filippo Inzaghi midweek and brought in Sinisa Mihajlovic, which is just so typical for Inter, isn't it? That they have to face this guy. I mean, you just can't win, can you? So, but still, I don't, I think Bologna are better than they are. They should not be relegated, but I definitely do not see them being good enough to stop this Inter. And I expect 3 pretty simple points. Critty, where are you on this?
Do you want the optimist or do you want the realist?
The realist.
Okay. So, as it pertains to the Bologna game, I think that every single Inter supporter, every single person in the media is saying the same thing that you just said, that I'm thinking, that Mo's thinking, that Alex is thinking. 3 points, do or die, no matter what. Absolutely must have 3 points. And I think those are the exact matches that go right to Inter's players' heads, and they overthink, they over try, they overcompensate, and instead of playing their game and instead of trying to relax and let things build up naturally and score the goals when they're there and create chances when they're there, they force things and they try too hard, and then and suddenly it's 0-0 in the 80th minute and Bologna slips one past you and gets lucky, and now you're trying just to get the 1 point. This is the exact type of match, and I'm trying to draw something to draw from these last 2 matches to say no, I'm wrong in this thinking. I'm not going to go there with this, because Inter has shown me at times that they're capable of doing just the opposite of what I've said. But I honestly, football now is a "what have you done for me lately" sport, and you're only as good as your last performance in so many cases. And Inter has no momentum right now. They have the morale seems to be kind of in the doldrums, and I just, it's going to take a performance that kind of shocks all of us, where Inter comes out and it's like the Sampdoria match from last season, where I think they won like 5-0 or something like that, and just blew the doors off of them, and which none of us expected. And I'm waiting for that Inter performance. This is what I'm waiting for, is to say, oh my God, this is the team that we all expected this year. Here they are. And, so far, especially as the season has come back into play as of January, it just hasn't happened. I cannot with good confidence say that, I think we'll win. I'm going to predict a win, but I don't think it's going to be very pretty. I think we're going to really sneak by on this one.
Well, against Torino, we saw Mazzarri play with Lautaro Martinez and Mauro Icardi up front. I wish he hadn't, because it was it was unwatchable. Do you think that we'll be able to see, at least in any of these 2 games, those 2 up front together, Mo?
It was Spalletti who played with them, not Mazzarri. That's just,
sorry. Hello, Mr. Freud. Sorry, whenever I see that 3-man defense.
If it had been any other name slip, I would have let it slide, but just Mazzarri, we can have that.
Sorry. You see, based on that performance and Handanovic doing that and the 3-man defense, I'm sorry, he was totally Mr. Freud. Right.
Too many memories.
Exactly. Oh, God. Yeah. No, but do you think we'll ever see? I mean, do you think we'll see those 2 play together up front?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I'm not so sure whether you'll be able to see them start, like we said last week. I don't know, and I don't know if it's a good idea to see them start a match yet. I don't know, but we'll definitely see Lautaro being deployed, hopefully earlier than the 80th minute, on a more regular basis. I think if things aren't going our way, especially against teams like a team like Bologna, and it's like the 65th minute in the second half, I think you're probably quite likely to see Lautaro step on the pitch. Against Lazio, I would imagine he's going to play his strongest, most reliable formation. And I don't know if Keita is going to be, I don't think he's ready, because he was still about 10 days out on Saturday. So I think he's not going to be fit for Lazio. He probably might be available for selection da valutare for the Bologna game.
Stefan de Vrij is out for the Lazio game, so he'll definitely play for the Bologna game, at least. No, just quickly give me two results there with Lazio and Bologna.
Lazio, it has to be a win, right? Like it's. I think it could be. It'd probably be a win. Maybe. It'll be a win. It'll be a win. It'll be a tight, silly win. I hope we finally see Mauro break his duck. And if Mauro scores on Thursday, then he's definitely scoring against Bologna, at least a couple of goals, and maybe Nainggolan can do a carbon copy of his goal against Bologna in the first half of the season. So I reckon maybe a tight 1-0 against Lazio and a 3-1 against Bologna.
I'm with you on the 1-0 against Lazio, but I think that it's going to be 2-2 against Bologna, and Papa Palacio is going to score twice. It's with Sinisa Mihailovic on the bench. It's January. I'm sorry, I don't want to be negative, but I'm just seeing this 2-2 thing in front of me. Alex, just quickly, results for those two.
I told you I would be positive today. I am going 1-0 against Lazio, advancing to the semifinal of Coppa Italia. And I'm going for 2-0 against Bologna. And I think the Lazio performance, as we see Inter playing up and down to their competition, I think the Lazio performance will actually be better than the Bologna performance. I think Bologna will be ugly, but I do see 2 wins in 2 matches.
Yeah. What about you, Critty? You've heard? Are you on my side, or are you on the positivity train with these two guys?
I'm going to go 1-0. Lazio defeats Inter and knocks them out of the Coppa Italia. And I'm going to go 1-0. Inter beats Bologna in the early week to get back the 3 points they desperately need in the league to keep pace in third place. Yeah,
okay. Fair enough. Let's hope that goes. Right, let's move on to the part of the show where we pay tribute, rip the piss out of, and make fun of something or someone in the world of football, starting with this week's Moratti, which will be presented by Mr. Mohamed Nassar.
He works a lot, he's intelligent, and he surprises people sometimes with his ideas. Not easy to find one person of these qualities.
Okay, so in a very difficult week to find anything resembling genuine positivity coming out of Inter, one had to dig really hard and suspend disbelief and whatever. So honestly, the one bit of Moratti, or the one bit of the bit of silver lining, was something I've spoken about on a couple of times, on a couple of occasions so far in the podcast, and that is the way management or the noise coming out of Inter is different to everything that we've heard in the last few seasons. There seems to be more of a, let's say, an aggressive stick it to him kind of attitude. Zhang coming out and saying that we demand a trophy, an improvement over last year. So there's a certain sense of assuredness, and I think this comes with Suning, finally finding their feet in the league, and of course having the second full season with Spalletti at the helm. So I think overall, despite this being the same sort of Groundhog Day sort of January thing that we are seeing, I'm quite confident in the fact that we're going to be, or the team, the side, the match, the squad, the whole structure is going to be able to dig themselves out of this hole much faster and much more efficiently than any of the last few seasons. And yeah, so that's kind of an aspirational Moratti for the week.
I agree with you. I really like how, to be honest, I really like how Marotta is taking this Inter job on. This like no nonsense shit. So I'm with you on that. It's aspirational. It's really, really nice. Right. Let's move on to something slightly more comical. This week's Frog, which will be presented by Mr. Alex Donno.
È clamoroso! Autogol di Ranocchia!
we travel to my new favorite league outside of Serie A, the Portuguese Women's League. Something unbelievable happened at the weekend, guys. The brave ladies from CP Pego actually found a way to lose a match 32-0 at the hands of Benfica. I watched the replay of all 32 goals scored in this one match. It was glorious. The goalkeeping was very suspect, as you imagined. But honestly, what happened to CP Pego is not that it's not that uncharacteristic, although that was the record for that league of the most lopsided loss and the most goals scored in one game. Guys, I looked up the league table. This might have been outdated by a couple of weeks, but through 14 matches, somehow Benfica, the women's Benfica squad, a goal differential of plus 257. So they are kicking ass and taking names right now. That is my new favorite league. I will keep following that one.
Well, you definitely got to keep us updated. 32-0 that's quite a hiding. That's quite a hiding. Right, let's move on to something much more negative. This week's Moggi, which will be presented by myself. This week's Moggi is, for me, is everything that you guys have said about the Perisic situation in terms of what have you done for me lately. Football he's what you said about Perisic is not the only player to be like this, but I feel that the game is no longer it's been like this for a long while, and I'm just every now and then it really comes and it's thrown in your face, and this modern football where everything is just it's just sold and buy and sell, and then you're there and then you're there. You play for Juve, then you play for Milan, then you play for Inter. It's pretty gross, and this all of this taking place in social media and in the public ring, like this is just so distasteful and nasty, and I'm kind of grossed out with the whole thing. Everything from Wanda saying that, revealing that Inter wanted to accept Juventus' offer of Higuain plus money, and all of the whole thing is just it just grosses me out. I'm not saying, I'm not one of those who says everything was better before. I think the Bosman ruling kind of did, it's basically in terms of labor law. I mean, it's good for the people, for the players, because they used to get screwed over before. But we need a bit of balance. It's gone too far. The pendulum has swung too far to that side now, and it's just none of it matters. It's just basically everyone. The players that come to your team could equally just play for your worst rivals the next week, and they would kiss the badge, and it doesn't mean anything. And all of this, especially during the transfer window, is really comes up, and it's pretty gross. And I just, to me, that's modern football. This aspect of modern football, at least, is this week's Moggi. Right, let's walk down memory lane together with our good friend Critty Smith and highlight a manager, a coach, a player that is worthy of being called an Inter legend. So it's Inter legend with Mr. Critty Smith.
Non è un personaggio che può essere sostituito, perché era un personaggio assolutamente unico. Il fatto che abbia sempre pensato e avuto nel cuore due colori, il nero e l'azzurro.
Guys, this one's been a long time coming. When this is the first time that I've written the article, and it's gone right to the podcast. When the Inter Legends series was first conceived, this is the first player I thought of, and he's to me he is Inter. He is the Inter legend. So we start with him at the top, and then everyone below him falls underneath. And while we're talking about all these Perisics and all these Mirandas and all these disgruntled ex-employees and former employees and current employees, this guy was the epitome of what a sportsman is, what a leader is, what a role model is. And I say every single week, if you're watching the Inter matches, they always flash the camera to this man sitting in the stands at the San Siro. And every Inter player should look up and aspire to be just like him, both in life, on the pitch, and off the pitch. Hey guys, I'm talking about a guy who spent almost 20 consecutive seasons at Inter. He went through the worst of times in the mid-90s. He went through the best of times in the mid-2000s, all the way up to the treble in 2010. He had 19 different managers in 19 seasons. That's 19 different tactical philosophies this man had to go through, different styles of management, leadership. And the one constant was Javier Zanetti was the one guy that was there throughout the duration of it. He saw Inter transition from a mid-table, mediocre Serie A side all the way to the best team on the planet in 2010. There's just not enough. It's hard to write the article because I felt it had to be perfect, and because I feel like in a way he's like Inter perfection. And for those of you who read the article, I really appreciate it. And I left off the article by saying, this is a little spoiler, but if you haven't read it, I said, every single club has their icon, the person they put as like, this is us, this is who represents us. For Liverpool, it's like Steven Gerrard. Some may say it's someone different. I'm just naming a name, but for certain, for me at least, and older Inter fans may disagree and whatnot, but for me, it is Zanetti. He is the crest. He is the logo. He is whatever you want to call it. He embodies everything that is good about this club and positive. And he's a charitable man. And like I said, I didn't want the article just to be about his playing career, because I feel like that's an injustice to him, because he's so much more than just a football player. He's a great ambassador of the sport. He's a great ambassador of the club. He's an ambassador of his country. And to think about like I said, the players that he's called teammate, you have to go all the way back to, the original Ronaldo, and he played as recently as Icardi coming into the team. I mean, think about that's generations of players. And they've been able and had the honor to call Javier Zanetti, teammate. And he's the captain of captains, is what the article's titled. 15 of Inter's 16 trophies that they won in the time that he was at Inter were with him wearing the captain's armband. That to me says a hell of a lot. So I'm going to turn over to you guys. Like I said, I could honestly, I could gush about this guy for about the next 20 minutes, because I have so much unbelievable respect for him and what he means to this club and his country, his national team, and the charities he does back home in Argentina. So starting with you, Nima, what are some of your thoughts and your memories on Javier Zanetti?
Extreme professionalism, correct behavior, always behaving like, always behave the right way, always fair play, always, even if the only time I've ever seen him do something wrong was in the UEFA Cup final 97, the return leg at the San Siro, when Roy Hodgson substituted him off, and he was disappointed, and then he came off, and immediately after showing that he was disappointed, he goes up to Roy Hodgson and apologizes. That's the only time I've ever seen this guy do anything wrong on a pitch, and he's immediately apologized. He is the role model of how you behave the correct way. He is when it comes to Inter captains, he is the ultimate Inter captain. He follows the mold of Armando Picchi. He follows the mold of the Facchettis, of the Bergomis. He is Mr. Inter, and what's interesting is that he's Argentinian. He's not even Italian. The same way that Helenio Herrera and Picchi and Facchetti are the symbols of the Grande Inter, Zanetti and Moratti and Mourinho are the symbols of this Inter, and Zanetti being the ultimate gentleman, and playing until his mid to early 40s and being very close to, if it hadn't been for that injury, he probably would have continued playing, because there's still nothing wrong with his I saw him play into Chelsea Legends against Inter Forever last May. Him and Cambiasso could still have a shout to start in this midfield. Like this, there's that good, and he's a complete role model, both on and off the pitch. And that to me, he's the symbol of the Inter that after Bergomi and the Moratti era.
Alex, what do you have to say about Zanetti and his contributions to this club, and what he means to you personally as an Inter supporter?
Well, I will say the piece that the Critty wrote is amazing, and I would imagine the biggest challenge was keeping it under about 100 paragraphs. with the Super
That
Bowl
was a
coming up.
challenge, yes.
Yeah, with the Super Bowl coming up in American football, you can really draw the comparison that Zanetti was and still is to Inter what Tom Brady is to the New England Patriots. He is synonymous with the brand. He is the first face, the first image that pops into my mind when I hear the word Inter is that of Zanetti. I mean, certainly my wheelhouse being, a child of the 90s and the 80s, of course, Zanetti coming to play in the 90s has been really a part of more than half of my life as an Inter supporter. I'm forever in debt to that. I love the fact that he is involved with the club to this day, and his role is only growing as vice president. I think his influence and the work he's doing behind the scenes, it's only increasing. It's not going to decrease over time. And certainly in the stage that Inter is in right now, call it a mini crisis, call it a crisis. They tend to go through these periods throughout the winter. You wish you had, and I really don't mean this as disrespect to Icardi. This is not the angle I'm taking, but you wish you had a captain like Zanetti, because if there is anyone that could, in the locker room steer, teammates through a tough period mentally, steer teammates through tough times like what Inter goes through annually in winter, Zanetti is that guy. Impeccable on the field, impeccable off the field. I thought, Nima, you said it very well. The sportsmanship and the professionalism. This is not the type of player you can look at and pick apart and say, sure, Interisti loves Zanetti, but he really wasn't a good guy. He was a dirty player. They love him. No one else does. No, I think no matter what club you support, if you've been a football fan for the last, 25 years, you can't not look at that man with the ultimate respect as a sportsman, as a player, and as a human being. And it's great to know, and I hope that generations to come, we'll be talking about him the way that the three of us and the four of us talked about Armando Picchi, decades from now, a guy we may not have watched play, but someone whose legacy stands throughout the club. You're right. This is to many folks, especially of these generations that are currently watching football, this is the guy who represents the Inter brand. He is the ultimate Inter legend.
I wanted your thoughts, both of your thoughts on this, and this is kind of, I think, is the most what impresses me most about Zanetti in an age where you have people like LeBron James switching from team to team seemingly every 3 or 4 years, when you have people like Neymar that are motivated by all the money in the world, when you have, as I said in the article, people's allegiances, players' allegiances are bought and paid for by contracts that are handed out by these large clubs like Chelsea that have an endless amount of cash flow. And as long as you receive your huge paycheck, you'll wear the colors proudly. But Zanetti had every more than enough times he had the chance to leave, and things were not right at Inter, yet he stayed. And I think that there's something that's missing in every professional sport almost in the world today, is that sense of loyalty, and to see quote unquote, to trust the process. If you're from Philly, you know what I'm talking about. To trust the process and to let things unfold and give it time and develop and to mature and have chemistry as a team, as opposed to running the first side of adversity. And Zanetti embodied the fact that he was loyal and that he stayed in an era of football when things were transitioning, when it was unpopular for players to stay. When if you got pissed off the first time at your manager, you requested a transfer out, because of whatever your feelings got hurt over. Guys, is that are you most impressed by that in Zanetti's career, is that he stayed, he was at Inter for almost 2 decades as a player?
I think so. I think the fact that he had the chance to go to Real Madrid on numerous occasions when Inter weren't winning, the fact that he felt that he was happy. He could have made 10 times more at Real Madrid and won 10 times more, but he chose not to because he was happy and he felt he was at home and he wanted to be loyal at the people where he was and to the people who had signed him because they had shown him love and he felt he wanted to be loyal to them. That is to me, that's so rare. You don't see that anymore, and especially as a foreign player. I mean, he is, as you said, he's the ultimate Inter legend, and he's the embodiment of the ultimate captain.
Yeah, Alex, I mean, you're being in Miami, you saw LeBron. I mean, it's about the money, brah. It's about the money. So what do you think about Zanetti staying for two decades? I mean, saying no to bigger paychecks, saying no to a club that, yeah, is guaranteed more trophies, Real Madrid being the case here, but Inter's home, Milan is home. That's where the heart is.
It's something I'm surprised more modern day athletes don't consider, the amount of equity you can earn by being a lifer with a single club or a single franchise. That, I think that the modern day approach, and there's not necessarily any right or wrong way to do this. I think in the eyes of the fans, you would rather have a Zanetti than a LeBron James who jumps from club to club, or a Neymar, same sort of situation, or Cristiano Ronaldo, who feel that their individual brand is bigger than any of the brands of clubs that they play for. From a fan, you would obviously rather have a Zanetti type of situation. And to me, that has value in itself, that, for the rest of Zanetti's life, that, yeah, he maybe passed up a chance to earn more money in individual contracts by jumping to Real Madrid. But I think in the long run, Zanetti may make up for that financially with, appearances as an Inter player. The salary that he makes now from Suning is a big part of the organization, that may pay off for him both internally and financially in the long run. I'm surprised it's something that players don't consider more often, because, yeah, as I said, I think that a very common attitude that athletes now take is that they want to pump their individual brand to be more important than the brand for any club that they play for. With Zanetti, that wasn't the case. I think it was always Inter first, club first for him. And you can't say the fans don't appreciate it, because any fan who's ever put on the blue and black colors look at Zanetti as being a deity, as being a god. And I think that is valuable for him now, beyond his playing career.
Yeah,
couldn't have said it better myself. Great job, guys. Great job, Critty. And I got to say, I agree with Alex. I think that article was absolutely fantastic. I can really recommend it. The entire Interlegend series is awesome. I'm really proud of what we're doing there. And we've got some surprises up our sleeves regarding the Interlegends, but we'll get back to that later. When it's more closer to the time. I'd like to thank Mo, who had to run away. It was really late where he is, so we really appreciate Mo for staying along. He had to go off. It's like 1 a.m. where he is, so appreciate Mo for staying up. And also I'd like to thank you, Critty.
Thank you very much, Nima. Always a pleasure to be here. And
also you, Alex. Great to have you on.
Always a great time. Thank you for having me.
And as always, my name is Nima Ruzzari, wishing you all a semi-final spot in the Coppa Italia, 3 points, good weekend, and sempre e solo Forza Inter.